Kim showered Trump with flattery in letter before Hanoi summit. Washington. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un heaped praise on President Donald Trump in a letter to the White House before a summit between the two leaders, while making clear he wished to negotiate only with the president and not his envoys, current and former U.S. officials told NBC News. The letter appeared aimed at cutting out the U.S. envoy to North Korea, Stephen Biegun, and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, in the discussions on the regime's nuclear and missile arsenal, while seeking to appeal to the president's ego, said one current and two former U.S. officials familiar with the matter, who spoke on condition of anonymity. While Kim sought to curry favor with before the Hanoi, their second one-on-one summit, officials across the U.S. government as well as allied governments worked to prevent the president from giving up too much in the negotiations, the current and former officials said. Kim wanted the discussions strictly. The regime appeared to believe it had a better chance of securing a favorable agreement in exclusively direct talks with the president than in a more traditional negotiation with Trump's deputies preceding a one-on-one meeting, former officials and a foreign diplomat said. A spokesperson for the National Security Council declined to comment. The State Department, when asked about the letter and the pre-summit preparations, a State Department spokesperson said, The letter helped create the momentum for the Hanoi summit, as it came when diplomacy was somewhat dormant over the December holidays, regional analysts said. But it echoed other signals that the North Korean regime sought to cut Pompeo and Biegun and the professionals out of the process. U.S. diplomats met with resistance when attempting to lay the groundwork for the February 27-28 summit in Hanoi, which then ended abruptly without an agreement. Former officials said working-level, detailed discussions establishing the summit agenda and the outlines of a potential agreement only began in earnest a week before the summit. The administration has offered a different account, saying discussions began much earlier with talks between Biegun and his North Korean counterparts. U.S. officials said Kim offered to dismantle the Yongbyon nuclear site in return for the end of the bulk of UN economic sanctions on the country. Trump said Trump has cited a series of letters from the North Korean leader as proof of his excellent relationship with Kim. In September, the Japanese government was involved in the effort to keep Trump from making concessions and remained deeply concerned about a potential damaging outcome in the run-up to the Hanoi talks. At the first summit, the pre-Hanoi briefings were largely about making sure the president understood what not to agree to in Hanoi, as opposed to focusing on a potential deal, the sources said. Ultimately, the Hanoi discussions were scheduled to conclude with a signing ceremony for an unspecified agreement, but the summit was cut short even before Trump and Kim could sit down for a planned lunch. The White House announced. Former officials said North Korea's negotiating stance made it relatively easy for the United States to walk away from the talks, as it offered a vague proposal on its Yongbyon nuclear site in return for a major concession in the form of a relaxation of the bulk of international sanctions. Both National Security Advisor John Bolton and Secretary of State Pompeo advised the president to reject the offer, former officials said.
Raindrop, drip, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that.